place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning and welcome back to Youth Wednesdays and Tobago Updates morning show. You're viewing us here live in Portmore, Scarborough, Tobago. This is Dwayne, yours truly, your favorite youth host. And this morning, we want to take the discussion to a more serious yet pertinent discussion this morning and to discuss about crime. We have heard from the TTPS, we have heard from the Prime Minister, we have heard from our Honorable Chief Secretary, and we want to have a youthful perspective on this grave matter that is affecting our space here in Tobago. And this morning to have this discussion, we have none other than Mr. Luke Trim, CARICOM Youth Ambassador here in our space, and we want to welcome him this morning. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Dwayne, and good morning to Tobago. I'm so excited to be a part of this interview this morning.
Are you excited?
Very excited.
Very excited. I hope that is not sarcasm,
you know I'm not a sarcastic person.
You're not? Okay, all right, no problem, Mr. Trim. So, crime, you and I both know that the theories on crime is that it's a necessary evil. However, when it boils down to the practicality of it, how it affects our space, especially from a youthful perspective, what are your thoughts, especially where Tobago is concerned?
Well, Dwayne, like I would have said yesterday when I gave the comment on Johnny's news piece, when we're in university and we're chatting and bantering with our friends and we're having the Little Trinidad versus Tobago type debate, the argument that we always put forward that makes us win is that Tobago is safe. It's a type of island. You can leave your car unlocked and don't have to worry. You can leave your house door open and you don't have to worry about nobody running in to come and rob you. But like I said, in recent times, what we have been seeing, it somewhat contradicts that argument that we usually put forth. Now, Dwayne, when we look at the heads of state and the decision makers, one solution they always put forward is to implement policy and put forward strategies to get young people out of crime or prevent them from getting into crime. But if we are to take a more serious analysis on that strategy, Dwayne, there is a huge difference between making policy for the youth and making policy with the youth. Because what we oftentimes see, Dwayne, is that they will create these policies, they will create these strategies, and then bring young people in after the fact to defend the point that yes, this was something that had a youth input. This is something that was youth centered. When in reality, that is not the case, and that is why we are seeing that many of these things they put forward is not really effective. It doesn't have the impact because, like I said, it was not made with the youth. It was just made for the youth. So that is one perspective I have when it comes to battling crime, especially where the youth is concerned.
Right, and you said quite a lot there, Mr. Truman. If I heard you correctly, you're saying that the essence of Tobago's safetiness, and serenity is we are losing it. And secondly, that when it comes to making policy to mitigate crime, the youth is not a youth centric. There's not a youth centric approach to it. Kindly tell us, what does a youth centric policy making and law making looks like for mitigating crime? How do you see it from where you sit as a student, as a son of the soil, and as an ambassador for youth?
Okay, Dwayne. So firstly, in the youth space, we are all somewhat connected. So let's say, for example, we're on the news and we see that something was implemented for youth and crime and so on. We will simply call each other and we will ask the questions. Were you a part of this? Were you aware of this? And then we will get the responses such as, well, they called me after the policy was formed just to get my opinion. And now they are branding and marketing it such as, youth was such a huge part of this decision. But Dwayne, if we are to, really implement policy and strategies that are to benefit the youth, firstly, we want to see that people who are youth are sitting at the table, that they are at the decision-making table, and we're not just talking about the youth who are holding youth positions, leadership positions. We want them to go into the somewhat marginalized communities and speak to the everyday youth that go through what we don't usually go through, Dwayne. Because you and I are privileged from some of the hardships that young people who live in
Right.
these communities go through. But if you are to make policies and strategies to benefit them, we want to see them sitting at the table. We want to see you collaborating with them, understanding their stories, understanding where they are coming from. And from that, we can create strategies and policies that can help to mitigate what they are going through. But like I said earlier, Dwayne, we are not seeing that. It appears as though it is happening, but in reality, it is not happening. Young people, we understand that if we really want to stop this pattern of crime, it starts with the youth. But there's only so much we can do, Dwayne. We have to build that meaningful bridge and connection with the decision makers. We have to make sure that all aspects and backgrounds of youth are represented. We also need to ensure that when these things are being implemented and they're being executed, that it is evidence based and it's not based on what you feel or what you think will work or what you think is politically correct or is going to look and sound good in the media. We have to really do the groundwork. We have to really go down and include people who are going through the things that we don't go through doing. And I think when we start there, that is when we can see some sort of change happening in the youth space. And if we can have that impact in the youth space, maybe it will trickle down into the wider society.
Right. I want to thank you for that, Luke, because you said something that is very profound there, which is we oftentimes place emphasis on those who are law-abiding and who have a certain semblance of status and education, and we kind of marginalize those who might be more prone to the lifestyle that can redound to crime or a life of crime. And you know I want to ask you on that premise. We see a lot of national and local programs, community football. We see a lot of things. Do you believe that these things are effective, and do you think that they're revolutionary in terms of meeting these set persons who might have a more tangible experience being exposed or pre-exposed to a life of crime? What are your thoughts?
Well, Dwayne, you know the old saying is that the devil finds wood for idle hands to do. And if you are to look at young people, we like to be included. When you have programs and initiatives that includes us, and we are able to, network with people who will ensure that we don't fall down or go down the wrong path, that in itself, Dwayne, it is a plus. It is something positive. But like I said, when you look at some of these strategies, the youth that are included are not necessarily those who are facing the
Mm.
challenges where crime
Yes.
is concerned. I however want to thank the Ministry for Youth Development and National Service. They have this initiative called Youth Talk, where they are going to these communities such as Laventille and Belmont, and they bring out the young men and have the conversations with them. I understand that Minister Shamfa Kudju, Honorable Shamfa Kudju, she has the empower, and it starts there. But like I said, we want to see everybody being included. It's good to have the conversations, but when it comes to actually the decision making on a higher political platform,
Mm.
people like myself, people like you, although we may have that level of education, we may have that level of consciousness, we wouldn't be able to relate to what they are facing. We wouldn't be able to relate of how it feels to be in a community where gunshots will be ringing out in the night time, where your uncle or your brother they live in a life of crime. We may not be able to relate to that.
Yeah.
But it's only until you get those people sitting down with you doing, and you include them and you make them feel seen, make them feel heard, and take actionable steps to ensure that what they are going through stops there. That is when we can see greater impact. That is just my opinion, Dwayne. So
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to quote me. I don't want anyone to quote me on that, but that
And
is
it's
just my
fine to quote
opinion.
you, Luke. It's fine to quote you, Luke, because let's make it more practical. We see a lot of ads about crime fighting, true crime stoppers, and so on. Report a crime. Anytime you see a crime, children watch the TV. Children do tune into news, so they are quite
Mm-hmm.
adept with what is happening to a degree, right? However, is it practical to report a crime if my father is his sole breadwinner, selling, let's say marijuana, or he has a
Mm-hmm.
illegal firearm, or he must kill somebody? When he is my hero, he's what I know. how do we tackle those realities? How do we tackle the reality where you live in a single parent home, the father is in jail, and the young man is acting out in school because the father is absent, mother's fighting up. He had to get troubles because he had to find a way to exert his hurt of an absent father. How do we tackle these challenges? And when we read the theories on crime, these things can redound to crime. These are some of the root causes of crime. Do you believe that the some of the initiatives, even locally and at the ministry level, are adequately addressing these practical issues? When we read the budget and when we hear about constitutional reform, do you believe that at the epicenter of these discussions are meeting the people? Because the truth is, look, politicians are what create policy. The carrion or the consensus is that they only come to my door when they need my vote. But do you believe that adequate emphasis is placed to mitigate these corners? These are corners and crevices that for a very long time that have not been touched. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so Dwayne,
Uh,
you addressed a greater societal issue
mhm.
when you touched on, how they view their breadwinners. Because, okay, we know that the societal norm is that you need to go to high school, you need to get a certain amount
Right.
of subjects, get a government job, and everything will be okay. But for the youth that come from these types of communities, Dwayne, it is very rare that they will acquire the necessary amount of CXC subjects to get a government job. And people are aware of that. We are aware of that because of what they go through. They may not have the finances. They may not have the safe space at home to have that mental capacity to thrive in academics. So we will see that people from those communities they may not have the societal norm of a complete CXC certificate. Okay. So when they want to seek employment, they can't seek employment because they are not qualified. Two, three. So when they realize, okay, I'm not fitting into society, I can't get a job, I'm not good enough, what are they going to do? They are still young and they have to survive and money have to make. And when you look at what we went through during COVID doing, I know as a young person you would have realized that when so many young persons lost their jobs, things like scamming became normalized. It became something that was trending. Okay, you can't make money, well, you have to turn to crime. Well, scamming as it may not sound as a serious crime, it may not sound as murder or robbing or robbing at gunpoint. It was normalized, it was popularized. So then now we hear it in the music, it's scamming. It became something that young people turn to, those who didn't have necessary subjects. But doing, like you said, when it comes to policymakers and so on, and whether or not it is effective, I have to be very diplomatic with this response. Hold on, let me think before I speak. I think that politicians need to take a greater step to not only represent their supporters, but
Mhm.
also those who are quiet within the community. Because you realize those who are going through these pressures and feel somewhat as though, okay, I have been going through this for years, nobody cares about me and my voice does not matter. I think they need to reach out and enter the ground to really touch base with these people, because doing, I know you will have the experience. Most of these people that are going through the hardships, they are very silent about it. When you
Mhm.
speak about them, they will always say something, well, is yes, I living like this and nobody ain't helping me, so I will help myself. I
Correct.
think we need to start there from a political point of view.
Mhm.
Again, that's my opinion. Nobody quote me on that, please. And all in all, it all comes down to inclusivity. If we are to make policies and strategies to benefit people who come from those backgrounds, then they need to be a part of the conversations. They need to be sitting at the table, and that is where we can see some type of impact and some type of change.
All right, thank you very much, Luke, and that I would take as your closing comment. But I would just say this as well. It is high time that we take a more pragmatic approach. It must be modern, right? It must be science driven, right? In terms of how we fight crime. We can't fight crime from a place of myopia and a place of insanity. And insanity, by definition, is doing the same thing and expecting the same results. However, I do apologize if I sound indignant, but that it is what it is, right? It is high time that we take the bull by the horn, and the bull by the horn doesn't necessarily mean that we become draconian and authoritative and overly aggressive and overexertive in terms of our powers, but we must
Yeah,
be
because we don't
pragmatic.
want it to turn into something doing where we shift to our society that's led by dictatorship and fear.
Correct.
We don't
Correct.
want it to become that under the guise of combating crime.
Correct.
So yes, I agree with your comment.
All right, good. So, guys, Mr. Trim, it's always a pleasure. I think we should continue these conversations. It's very pertinent. Guys, this brings us to the end of our interview this morning. Luke, you, being a host, you're still a host with us. We had to tell him to do one thing. Remember to share the live,
Share the live, share the
share the
live,
live,
share the
share the
live.
live. Have a great day, guys, and be safe.